our final twosome is Mona Casey and Sonya. Is this your image?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start off with this then. So why did you choose that image, Mona?
Well, mainly I was responding to Charlie's brief, which was this, to give an image that might suggest an influence in our curatorial kind of practice or whatever. And I felt that when I thought about what was the thing that really made me think about curating, what was the work, the show, whatever, this one popped to mind. So this is an image from a show called Cocaine Orgasm, which was a show curated by Bank. For those of you who don't know Bank were a collective that were operating in London in the 1990s and were really, really quite radical, interesting. Their shows were all about kind of challenging the art market and the art system. And this was one of a number of shows that they curated in various warehouse spaces in London. And what I liked about Bank, apart from the fact that when I first heard Bank talk, they came up to Margaret Street at the School of Art to give a talk to the MA students, and I was an MA student, a fine art student at the time, making artwork. And for me, the thing about their practice was that for the first time I really realised that artists could curate work. They could make work, their own work, but they could also curate others. And what I was really interested with Bank was they were quite radical in terms of curating or setting up scenarios or stage sets or kind of theatrical kind of tableau where they then would inject or curate other people's work into that. And not just contemporary work of the time, but actually historical or older works from older artists that have been around for a while. So I loved the idea that you could create a situation or framework into which then other works could be curated. So Artist Collective, make work, set up a situation, insert other work into it. And that's something that I find really, really quite interesting in terms of my own curatorial practice. Rant. Yeah, okay.
Lovely, lovely, rants, lovely.
And the title of that piece is
well, I mean, they did curate fabulous shows like Zombie Golf and stuff like that, and Cocaine Orgasm, really great kind of title shows, so love Bank. Yeah.
Well, this kind of goes back to when I was doing history of art, and I came across this book, and I've kind of referred to it on and off for the last 10 years, and it seems everything I sort of think of or come across, I think I wonder if it's in this book, and it always is. And I think there's always something about it that I come back to, be it about Matthew Barney. I'm currently looking at Richard Foreman, Avant-Garde Theatre, and it's in there, and I just absolutely love this book. And it really introduced me into the notions of sort of live art, performance art, and that's something that I'm so interested in. And I think that's an area that I particularly want to take forward with my own practice. And that's something that I'm kind of exploring at the moment for my final project as well. So it's really, to me, it's a really precious and important book. And I know it isn't the great wow, but it was a real groundbreaking one at the time. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
So BCU MA curating. So just tell us, so people get a sense, tell us a bit about what the relationship is between the two of you and what the course is, I guess.
Oh gosh. Right.
But I think it's important.
All right. For the last year, I've been the course director for the MA Contemporary Curatorial Practice, and Sonya is currently a student on that course. And we only started working together because of this MAC situation. So what I would say is that, to start with, that the allotment project gave us a situation into which we could actually start to work together. And without that, we might not have worked together. So I think that is a kind of a positive step. I think that was really quite interesting. It was never my intention when we were first asked. Charlie said, yes, some of your students, whatever. And I thought, great opportunity for my students. And then suddenly realised that all my students are incredibly busy with various other projects. And in the end, it was myself and Sonya sitting here at the MAC, and I was kind of the assistant, come-along person, kind of pushing students forward. Suddenly found myself kind of very much involved with the process, and I was very happy to be involved with that process, actually. So that was really, the moment that we first started to work together, and that happened effectively in March. So.
And so, has it worked through? Has it been part? Did it become part of your kind of course, or was it more outside of that? Or
well, the way I see it is that when we're in university, the relationship we have is that Mona is my course director, and we talk about my final project, and we talk about university life and that kind of thing. But when we're actually here, I hope this is right in saying, I do feel it's like a partnership, actually.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that we've kind of got to know each other on both sort of levels, really. And I must admit, I am kind of looking forward to when I'm not a student anymore. So, you know, but it's been really interesting. It's been really great for me to get to know Mona and to understand Mona's practice and the way that she thinks about art. And, you know, really learn from her as well. So, you know, it's been really
so the
great.
Museum of Objects, then where did that come from, and why the Museum of Objects? Why Museum of Objects?
Well, of course, because I mean, I think again it was the situation, it was the particularities of this particular project. I mean, the notion of this long 6 month, well, for us it was 6 month period of time. The opportunity to really work with the time-based element of that was really important. And then for me, it was the scale of the plot. It was such a small thing to work with, you know. I'm not saying that I'm all for kind of, I'm all for restrictions. You know, restrictions can produce great creativity in my view. So restriction, I think, is no bad thing. But it was such a small space. And for me, it was almost the complete antithesis to the notion of a museum with this great kind of authoritarian voice and grandeur of institution. And for me, it was almost the opposite of that. And somehow, a little bit like the kind of bank thing, there was a sort of a notion of that kind of challenging something of the situation. They were challenging the system, but the situation, and I felt this was kind of an opportunity to kind of play about with that. I mean, you've got a small space and you want to create a museum in that space. Kind of was interesting.
But like Clark Gallery, you chose a very formal approach. Not formal, and that's the right, but a very structured approach. Lots of people talked about how organic things were, and about relationships and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in fact, you set out with quite a structure.
Yeah.
And tell us about that structure and why you happened upon that structure, or what you were trying to do through that. I find the whole structure really fascinating, and but to wonder what your initial impetus was for that.
I suppose looking back, actually, I think we were just determined to, well, for me anyway, it was about making the most of that space and of the duration as well. And we really set out to kind of showcase, you know, this emerging talent, local talent, and also look towards showing national artists as well, so we could kind of mix it up. I mean, I think actually when you look at the duration of the plot, the actual weeks that we had, this division by 7 with a couple of weeks sort of group show seemed quite a good sort of solution, really, as well.
Could you talk us through that structure?
Yeah,
what that structure was?
The structure was that, you know, we were given a structure to a certain extent. You know, we were given this kind of three kind of phase moment, and we wanted to really kind of embrace that phase, those series of phases. So effectively it ended up as a kind of 9 week and 10 week phase over the period of time. And we thought, well, what we thought was, yes, we could just put something up in the first phase, we could put another thing up in the second phase, and we could put another thing up in the third phase. And we thought, well, let's work with this kind of weekly turnover. And we were talking about the idea of allotment and, you know, change in the environment, and we were talking about what that could mean, and phases and the seasonal changes and so forth. And in the end we thought, well, actually, let's just put a new artist in every week. And instead of having, so basically at the end of that process, we would have a collection of work. And the collection would be the foundation of the museum, effectively.
But the artist wrote a statement with their work as well, which I thought was quite I like that bit of kind of like artists that you didn't contextualise their work, did you?
No.
They contextualised their work. Why did you choose to ask the artist contextualise their work?
Well, for me, it was the opposite of what museums do. You know, do.